The other day I came across a video and I thought it was very interesting, so I'd like to share with you what I learned from it. So it was called How to Force Your Brain to Study Even When You Don't Feel Like It. So firstly is how the brain learns. So why don't we feel like learning sometimes at all? So there's actually a reason why you won't feel overwhelmed by just tying your shoelaces or the thought of just walking 20 steps, but you feel overwhelmed at the thought of climbing a mountain, even though tying your shoelaces and walking 20 steps are the first steps to be able to climb that mountain. It's because our brain is constantly making judgments on how hard something is and how much effort or energy it will require. So, for example, when you're tying your shoelaces, your brain automatically knows you can do that in a few seconds, so it doesn't require much energy. But it knows that if you want to climb a mountain, it's going to take hours, or the highest ones, maybe even days. So, our brain actually consumes 20% of our resting energy, which is a lot. So it's very efficient in avoiding unnecessary energy intake, which is why you might feel overwhelmed when studying, because it's one of the most energy consuming things you can do with your brain. So the key energy consuming part of it is organizing information, which is crucial for memory formation and understanding. So if you think of it this way, as marbles, which represent individual facts or concepts, and a cup as mental categories or frameworks that the brain can use to organize information, then when you have new information coming in, your brain has to understand and analyze the fact first. So it has to fully understand the marble, so it can judge which mental cup it belongs to and place it there based on the similarity to existing knowledge. And then thirdly, just store it appropriately, which reduces mental effort afterwards. And it repeats this with every new piece of information it receives. And if you successfully organize the information, then it will lower the cognitive load and mental effort used to retrieve the information every time. So your brain can only remember a certain amount of information at one time. So yeah, if you think about it like a computer, you have primary storage, secondary storage. Your CPU can only have a certain amount of information that it can store at one time. So the rest of the information goes all the way to the RAM, which might take longer time to it can only remember a certain part at one time. But if you are able to organize the information, then it's easier for you to find it. So also, for example, if you organize different information in files, then it's easier for you to search through your files and folders to immediately find what you want, having drawers, and you can just slide open each of them because you know exactly where they are. So yeah, because our brain remembers things in chunks. So if you have multiple connections, there's multiple retrieval cases. So if you had to remember a number 19982001, it's harder to remember than if you just remember them as, if you place them in the category years and just remember them as 1998 and 2001, which is much easier for you to remember. So then why is this a problem when it comes to learning? So it's actually, the problem is when our brain has no predefined cups or categories to place new information in, since we're learning new things. So instead of deciding where the information fits, which is quite easy, our brain has to first figure out how many cups you need. Secondly, determine which cup, what each cup represents. Thirdly, consider alternative ways to organize the information. And lastly, re-evaluate previous decisions when you get new information and see if that fits. So this is why learning feels overwhelming, because it's a complex task to simultaneously understand the information, comparing it to what you already know, and organizing it with no structure, which really drains your energy. So this overwhelm can lead to resistance and procrastination and not wanting to basically study. And the three main energy intensive tasks during this is understanding, comparing, and deciding where to store the information. So what can you do to fix this? So thirdly is the ladder method. So it basically, if you think of a ladder, it's it goes really high and has lots of rungs on it. So it breaks large topics into manageable rungs, and each of the rungs represent a low effort task instead of the whole topic as one. So firstly, identify the easiest things in the new topic or material that you're trying to learn, and then focus the information into stuff you can easily understand, compare, and organize, and then build the initial mental scaffold framework and basically skip the parts you're uncertain about. So the first and second rounds, the first one is where you build a basic scaffold. So focus into low effort facts that you think that you can fully understand, and skip the difficult information. And or you can do this is by doing non-linear note taking, for example, just drawing mind maps instead of trying to copy out the textbook, because it can give you a basic structure which you can build on with the second methods. And if you're tired after this, after you build the basic scaffold, you can stop there so it doesn't overwhelm you. And then maybe the second day, move on to the second round, where you can deepen the understanding and refine structure. So basically revisit the material you did the previous day and build on it and explore deeper details gradually. And then this will help you refine your mental cups and clarify where each thing goes. And basically it gives you a better general understanding and more precise way to organize information. Thirdly, lastly is the third round, where you can add finer details, and you can even include study aids such as flashcards, and basically just you should have a complete coverage of the topic at this point. And so an example of this is if you're doing chemistry, for example, and I know a topic in chemistry is called acids, bases, and salts, which is a really big topic. So once you flip open your textbook, you might see that acids are a source of hydrogen ions, bases are a source of hydroxide ions, pH scales, strong acids, weak acids, neutralization, indicators, names of salts, titrations, and ionic equations. And once you hear all of that, once you read all of those, you feel extremely overwhelmed at first because it's a lot of topics. But on the first day, maybe you already know what an acid vaguely is, and a base, and the pH scale, because you've probably heard of that before in everyday life. So you probably know that vinegar, for example, is an acid, and cleaning products are sorts of bases. So you can already make a few cups. So you have one cup that's acids, and in it you can put sour, vinegar, and low pH, so less than 7. And then your second cup can be bases. So it can be soapy cleaning products and high pH, so more than 7. And then you can have another one, which is pH scale, which goes from 0 to 14, and pH 7 is neutral. So then on day 2, you can build on this information, and because if you feel overwhelmed by already sorting them into 3 cups, you can just revisit it the next day. So round 2, basically moving on to the second part, you might read in your textbook that acids produce hydrogen ions in solution. And immediately, this piece of information isn't loose. It goes straight into place into your acids cup. And the same thing with bases. If you read, bases produce hydroxide ions in solution, you don't have to make a new cup. You can just place it in your base cup, which is very organized already. And you might also come across some new information. For example, neutralization forms salt and water, when an acid and a base react. So you can make a new cup because you already know what acids are, you already know what bases are. Then you can make a new cup which includes the reactions between those two, called neutralization, where you can just place that information. And then, you can refine the cups you've previously made. For example, the pH scale cup that we made before. We can now add more information to it. So you can say pH measures acidity. It's related to hydrogen ion, H plus concentration, and a low pH means there's more H plus in it. So there's fewer new facts, and everything seems connected to what you already know, which means you can build on the structure really well. And then when you get to round 3, we can move on to the equations. So H plus OH goes to H2O, which is neutralization equation. So, and then you can add that to your neutralization cup, and it doesn't feel overwhelming like it would before. And you can also create sub-cups of things you already know. For example, our acids cup, we can split it into 2 categories, strong acids and weak acids. And we can create a cup called salts, and we can create it into chloride salts, sulfate salts, and nitrate salts, which so you've already covered most of the topics here, and it's only over the course of 3 days, and it doesn't feel overwhelming at all because all of the new information you've learned is already connected to something you've created the day before. And every single time you learn a new piece of information, you're going over the same tracks again, which consolidates the knowledge you did previously. So why does this method work? It's because each rung requires roughly the same low effort, so it doesn't feel overwhelming all at once, and you can split it into manageable parts. So when you're learning, it increases your learning progress, and you have a stronger mental framework. So you're not just memorizing facts, you have a structure and a way of finding the information. And it also strengthens how much you understand it. And it reduces procrastination because it makes initial engagement simple. You don't have to do a lot, just create 3 cups and organize information you already know. So another example of this is if you've seen the show Sherlock on BBC. It mentions he has we all know that he's a genius and he can remember details from ages ago. And the reason he can do this is because he has something called a mind palace. So he pictures his memories as a whole entire palace, and everything he sorts into different rooms, into the doors, and every single time he needs to remember something, he walks through the palace and opens certain doors and corridors and goes through the exact place to where he stored it last. And it means that he can remember things from years ago that many people won't remember at all, which is kind of similar to us organizing it all in cups, but on a bigger scale. So in conclusion, I think the laddered method is really helpful, and you should definitely try to implement it. I mean, if it doesn't work, you can always go back to another method, but at least try, because it won't take much time, and it might help you a lot. And that learning feels overwhelming because you have to organize information as well, and there's nothing wrong with that. Just this method can help a lot with it. So thank you for listening. I hope you learned something. Bye bye.